Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the very first episode of I Choose Love. I'm your host, Dr. Nikki Ann, holistic guide, eternal student of the soul, and a woman who has walked through the fire, lost herself, and found herself again, but chose love every time. I'm so excited. And today is a special day because this episode is where I open the door to my world, my journey, my awakening. And I invite you to go on this spiritual adventure with me. I cannot wait.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
So, who am I and why am I here? What is this podcast all about? I choose love. Let me start with a confession. I didn't want to be on camera. Like, not ever. It's not my thing. But my dear friend Nicole, who I affectionately call Becky, back in 2017, hi girl, she said to me, Nikki, you need to be on a podcast. You need a platform. You have something to say, and I would love to hear it. I gave it some thought, but never acted upon it. The idea of a camera, stage, spotlight, no, ma'am. That wasn't for me, sir. I was hiding behind the comfort and fears, of my profession and just my pride. But life, oh, life, has a funny way of dragging you into your purpose, whether you want it or not. And notice I didn't say pulling. I said dragging because that's what it felt like. So this podcast isn't something I threw together yesterday. This thing has been baking for several years in the oven. It's maybe even a bit overbaked, I think, or it's not burned, but I think it's a little bit crispy. That's how long it's been in the oven for. Several years of questions, several years of slowly awakening without me even realizing, several years of peeling back everything I thought was perfect so that I could finally meet who I actually am. But what I think pushed me over into the deep was losing both of my parents to cancer 6 months apart. First, my dad in September 2020, then 6 months later, my precious best friend, bestie, mom, I lost to cancer. On Mother's Day, I found out she had cancer in June 2021. And this was definitely life shattering. I wasn't prepared for that. And I think it really did the trick. And let me tell you, when my spiritual awakening hit due to those things, it hit hard. There was no gentle nudge. There was no whisper, no angel Gabriel tapping me on the shoulder, nothing like that. It was more like the universe kicking down my door in combat boots, like saying to me, it's time to grow up and take accountability now. And suddenly, everything I thought I believed, everything I thought I knew, everything I thought defined me, being a mother, being a teacher, having my PhD, hellfire preaching pastor, Jesus freak, whatever identity I clung to all my life, they started to crumble. But out of that darkness, light was born. And this podcast was born from that darkness, along with other great things that has happened to me since, and what is this podcast like? What is the purpose of it? I ask myself. I choose love is spiritual heart talk. Not that cute, fluffy spirituality where you just chant positive affirmations and ignore the truth. No, this is the deep stuff, my friends. The uncomfortable stuff. The ego shattering, soul awakening truth that makes religious people squirm. I should know I used to be one because it pulls back the curtain on everything we've been told to believe blindly, the programming, you know. But let me be clear. I just want to make it clear. I'm not against Christianity. Neither am I against the Bible or religion. I choose love always and everything. What I am for, though, is Christ consciousness, the pure essence of his love, God's love, the awareness that the divine is not out there in space, but is within us. That Jesus wasn't just a man. He was a state of being, a frequency, a prototype, if you want to call it, a model of what awakened humanity looks like. And when you begin to awaken, Your consciousness will realize this and it will expand, and you will start to realize that your soul, your purpose, your truth is much bigger than the roles you were taught to play and accept. Now, this journey so far has been very recursive. I have good days, I've had bad days, I've had days where it's clear and days where I've been confused. I didn't wake up because I wanted to. I woke up because life stripped me down. Life literally humbled me, beloved. It did. Life took me from thinking I had everything in control, I knew everything, I was all that, to working jobs my pride would have laughed out loud at. I no longer could fit into regular 9 to 5 jobs. I just felt so odd all of a sudden, all the time. So I retired from teaching after 25 years and I set out on a quest to find meaning in other places. I didn't care where, but I knew I couldn't do normal anymore. It just felt so weird. First, I tried Ubering, got tired of that real quick. Then I found myself working at Walmart as a cashier. Then I became a CNA with a PhD that I got in 2023. Yes, I did all of those jobs, and let me add 2 master's degrees. They meant nothing to me anymore. Titles meant nothing. Roles meant nothing. Physical appearance meant nothing. Clothes meant nothing. Cars meant nothing. Jobs, relationships, only my children and God. And my children thought I was going off the rockers because the old mommy that they once knew was gone, just like that. And the new one who only cared about love and had no judgment for others was now who they were stuck with. Now, as a CNA, I was in rooms where people were taking their last breaths. I was holding hands with souls crossing over. I was seeing life at its rawest and realest, most vulnerable level. No filters, no titles, no masks. And when you're that close to the veil between the world, this world, and the next, your own ego starts melting off. You start asking questions they don't teach in church, questions theologians avoid, questions your pastor would say, or what I used to tell people when I was a pastor, a hellfire preaching one. Don't ask that, or just have faith, or don't question God. But no, I was the one asking. I had no answers and I felt lost. I felt so alone. I couldn't go to my religious friends. They would brand me as a heretic or worse yet, a backslider, even. And I knew no one who was going through this experience to confirm I wasn't going crazy. So, or I wasn't becoming a devil worshiper. I knew I wasn't becoming a devil worshiper because I still love God. So then I decided to turn to the internet, what most people do. And I went researching the symptoms of what I was going through. And I found out that it was called a spiritual awakening, something I never heard of until then, that time. And I started to ask myself, who am I? Why am I here? Why did my beliefs feel too small for the size of my soul at this point? Why did I feel God inside me, that's so big and not just above me? Why did the stories of the Bible suddenly feel symbolic, some of them rather than literal? I realized I wasn't losing faith. I wasn't becoming a heretic. I was just outgrowing the version of God that was handed to me, the version of God I was taught. My awakening was now showing me the God I know, the source, the divine that is in me, that I am one with, that you're one with. When that awakening happened, at first I felt lost, like I had been unplugged from one reality, but wasn't fully plugged into the next. This podcast is a podcast I wish someone had made for me back then or had stumbled upon, because awakening is so beautiful, but it can also be terrifying. That's my toddler in the background. It can, like you're going crazy. You feel like you're going crazy. It can make you question everything, including your own mind. And I'm here to say you're not crazy. You're not alone. You're simply waking up. This is our space. This space is for the seekers, for the ones who feel religion can't contain their soul anymore, but they still feel the truth of God. the truth of the Christ consciousness, the truth of love pulsating inside of them. This podcast is for the ones like myself whose spirits are expanding faster than their environment can understand it. For the ones who feel misunderstood. For the ones suddenly questioning everything about their identity, their beliefs, and their purpose. This podcast will ruffle the feathers of the religious. I should know because, as I've stated over and over again, I used to be one, a very, very judgmental one. It will, however, provide love and support for those who are questioning their reality and the lies that were programmed into us to accept blindly. I choose love. Expect spiritual truth without dogmas. We'll be discussing consciousness without the confusion and healing without the fear. Let's get into wisdom without feeling guilty. And let's have a rebirth of self, real, raw, and honest. We'll have conversations that may trigger you because truth does that. And I'm happy it does because that will cause you to change or cause me to change. We'll have guidance for navigating or awakening, and we'll be blessed with tools that help us to step into a purpose. This is spiritual heart talk. This is where we tell the truth even when it shakes the room. This is where we break free from the illusions that kept us small. Because when you awaken, you remember your soul. The first thing you do, you'll say, I remember. And when you remember, you will remember love. And that's the only thing you came here for. And that will make you unstoppable. Yeah. So why is this podcast called I Choose Love? Because in the middle of my awakening, in the chaos, in the confusion, my ego died, and the shadows and the tears and in the nights, I felt so alone, and there was no one, nothing that could help me. And the only thing that I could hear was, I remember to love, choose love, not the emotional kind, not the romantic kind, not, the superficial kind. I'm talking about divine love, a love that had no judgment, a love that had, no filter. It was just pure and warm and radiating. A love that connected my soul to the divine and connected my soul to others. A love that brought me into oneness and into a collective consciousness. And choosing love to me means choosing the truth. It meant choosing awareness and choosing my soul over fear and choosing love over fear. So if you're here listening with me for the first time, for this first episode, it's not by accident. Your soul led you here. Your spirit led you here. Your curiosity led you here. Your awakening led you here. Welcome to the journey. Welcome to truth. Welcome to the rebirth of our consciousness, because we're doing this together. Welcome to I Choose Love. And I'm so excited. Thank you for joining me for this first deeply personal episode. I am Dr. Nikki Ann, whatever. And I will see you in the next one. Until then, let's choose love always.